me now to do the honors of introducing the next segment as well as the session chair, the speakers, and the panelists to you. The next segment, which is of course our final segment for our summit, is titled Harnessing the Digital Economy, a Catalyst for Sri Lanka's Growth. I would now be inviting our session chair, the speakers, and the panelists to take their seats on stage. So as I read out their names, I'd like to kindly invite them to join us up. Our session chair and moderator is Mr. Sandun Hapugoda. He is Country Manager, Sri Lanka and Maldives. At MasterCard, we warmly welcome him to join us. Our first speaker is Mr. Parakrama Munavira, Director of ASCI, Dubai, UAE. We also have Ms. Sandhya Salgado as our next speaker. She is a Strategic Communications Specialist, Presidential Task Force member of Clean Sri Lanka. Our panelists include Dr. Tasir A. Rangres, Executive Director, the Rangres Network, Dubai, UAE. And we also have our next panelist, Mr. Sudatta Silva, Additional Director General, Sri Lanka Customs. We warmly welcome all of our speakers and panelists to join us up. And with that, we will now commence with the very first segment, a presentation on bridging Sri Lanka's digital divide, lessons from UAE's digital transformation. To take us through this first presentation, I'm delighted to welcome our first speaker. Let's put our hands together for Mr. Parakrama Munavira.
Lovely introduction. The President of Chartered Professional Institute of Sri Lanka and founder, Professor Lakshman Watwala. Conference Chair, Dr. Samantha Ratnayaka, and keynote speaker, Professor Pawan. Members, distinguished guests, fellow professionals, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Well, sorry. The topic that I have chosen for this afternoon is Bridging Sri Lanka's Digital Divide, Lessons from UAE's Digital Transformation. In fact, I feel that I am qualified and credible enough to talk about UAE's digital transformation because I lived in United Arab Emirates more than I lived in Sri Lanka. 24 years in Sri Lanka and 34 years in United Arab Emirates. Now, if you do the math, you can guess my age, but that's not the right answer. So you need to add 4 and subtract 2. That's a small exercise for you all. Well, so before we get into this subject, bridging the Sri Lanka's digital divide and UAE's transformation experience, I'll take you through a few slides to talk about the transformation and transformative technologies. Now let's look at, so what is transformation? So transformation is something that a complete change. I think over last few years, Professor Watawala and the team has transformed this institution to a level that we see today with 3,500 members. So well, the world has gone through this transformation for many years. So there are 4 key transformations we had in the world that was due to 4 industrial revolutions. Now, if I take you back to the history, in 1784, the invention of steam engine that transformed the way we did agriculture. The manual production has become mechanized production, and of course the transportation. So there were locomotive engines introduced to the transportation. And then 1870, the invention of electricity. That is one of the biggest transformation we had in the world. I mean, I don't need to explain what electricity did to the world. Well, in 1969, we had another industrial revolution, that the third industrial revolution, which is the information technology. So, of course, information technology is a continuous transformation that even we experience today. But the fourth industrial transformation would be Today, it is artificial intelligence. Now, it is predicted that artificial intelligence will have an impact more than what electricity did in 1870. So I think you all have to prepare for that. So there will be a lot of changes in the world. Of course, I mean, there's a huge hype about artificial intelligence, but you all have to prepare in the sense you don't need to become programmers. Of course, having some knowledge about artificial intelligence, and especially using generative AI kind of applications, will help you to stand out among others. So let me explain to you what is digital transformation. So digital transformation is that integrating digital technologies into your work processes. Now, I think two of the companies that they have showcased their transformations, and one of the companies, Petroleum, they said they have saved 58.7 million rupees in a year. And the second company, that Colombo Coffee Shop, they have increased their online business sales by 576%. So that is what a digital transformation can do. So digital transformation has three stages. First one is that digitization. Now there is a misconception about digitization and digitalization. Digitization is that you put your manual documents into an electronic format. That is actually first stage of the transformation. But of course, there are companies now, they are born digital, so they don't need to go through all these stages. The second stage is digitalization, which is you are integrating digital technologies into your work processes. And the third stage is digital transformation, where so you integrate emerging digital technologies into your work processes and create new business models, find new markets. So now what are these transformative digital technologies? Now, there are many digital technologies that transform organizations, the countries. Now, well, we see that all these technologies are not used by everyone, so people have to select, the organizations have to select the right technology for them. Because most of the companies, I know that because of the hype about the technology, most of the organizations, they select technology, but which is not giving them the right results. So it is important that you select the right technologies. Now let's look at some of these technologies. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, and big data. So AI is not a new concept. So AI concepts started in 1958 in Dartmouth conference in US. Some few scientists got together and they wanted to create a computer that can mimic human brain, think like human, and act like human. So, but that was only a concept, and it took more than 50, 60 years for us to realize that. Of course, there were certain conditions that required for AI models to run. Now, currently, we do have that conditions fulfilled. And then the cloud computing. Cloud computing is something that which you don't need to have computer infrastructure. So you use the infrastructure which is probably lying in your own country or somewhere else. So you don't need to invest on infrastructure. So then the Internet of Things, IoT. IoT is a technology that's used for communication between devices. And then fiber optic, 5G, these are the telecommunication technologies that created the infrastructure, connectivity. So that is a technology that transformed the whole digital space. Then financial technologies, of course, Sri Lanka does well in banking sector. So we use a lot of financial technologies for our day-to-day operations. Then cybersecurity and digital trust. So it's very important that one of the speakers in the morning mentioned that we don't give that emphasis on cybersecurity. It's very important to have cybersecurity because when you do work in digital space, so people need to have that security. So you trust the systems if there is proper security. Well, there are other technologies which are not that, currently not in forefront, but of course many companies use that. Now you see 3D printing for the layered manufacturing and construction, and augmented reality and virtual reality for mixed reality for immersive experiences, blockchain for finance and secure contracts, robotic process automation, so which now there are systems that procurement to the payment in an organization does it entirely unmanned. So robotic process automation and integration of several technologies that you do the procurement, call tenders, do the procurement and process the payments using these technologies. So then edge computing. Edge computing is something that we will experience in future. Now cloud computing is something that the data centers are residing some other place. But edge computing is that the computer processing is taking place closer to the applications like autonomous cars, air taxis. You cannot have a latency. The application required faster processing. So edge computing is something that you will see very soon. And then the digital twins. Digital twins is something that, let's say you have large equipments, so where you have a similar equipment created in a virtual space, in digital space. And then of course you extend performance of this equipment through IoT networks and monitor the performance, monitor the health of the equipment, and do research based on the data you have for performance improvement. Now let's go to the subject that Sri Lanka's digital divide and turning barriers into bridges. Well, who says that Sri Lanka is far behind? So we are not far behind. Professor, actually, I have to thank you for creating this kind of an environment, a platform for companies to come and showcase their talents. Now, the 6 companies that they have presented, I was blown away that, so they are in par with world-class companies. So we have to be proud that Sri Lanka has a huge talent. So we need to harness that talent. Well, when we talk about the bridging barriers, well, Sri Lanka has set targets. So our current digital economy is $3.47 billion, and we want an increase by 2030, US dollar 15 billion. And our digital exports are US dollar 1.5 billion at the moment, and 2030, we are planning to increase up to $5 billion, so which is a daunting task. But with the capabilities we have, I am sure that Sri Lanka can achieve this. Now, of course, we need to bridge these gaps for us to achieve that targets. Anyway, Sri Lanka government is thinking that digital transformation is one of the catalysts for the economic growth. Well, as professionals, you have a very big role to play. The leadership set the vision, the directions, but of the execution is done by the professionals. So whereas you all are the people that are going to execute that. So that is what UAE does, but hopefully Sri Lanka also will do the same. So let's look at what are the gaps. So we have got infrastructure gaps. So we have got the connectivity gaps. So we have got access to technology gaps. So I don't want to go and explain all of these because it takes a lot of time. The conference chair told me to stop it at the right time. Well, then there's a gap, skills gap. So I want to say again, Professor Vatavalla said in the morning that we need to educate our youth. So that's very important that we educate them on digital technologies. STEM-based education is an important factor for us to use the digital transformation as a catalyst. Well, the systems. Very important to have systems. Now, if you go to Dubai airport, so it takes only 15 minutes for you to get down from the aircraft and come out. That's because they have created systems. They use technology. So having systems is very important for us to achieve this digital transformation goals. Of course, then policies and laws are important that for us to have this journey, a successful journey. Well, so I'll give a quick comparison between Sri Lanka and Dubai. So what happened to the presentation? Something wrong, I think. So I'll give a quick comparison between Dubai and Sri Lanka, UAE and Sri Lanka. So both the countries started digital transformation at the same time, year 2000. So UAE has set up a digital policy framework, and they established Dubai Internet City, and they have established Digital Identity Authority. And such a very important thing, digital ID is a must for us to have a digital economy. Because you will not be able to do anything if you don't have a digital ID to do online space transactions. Well, year 2000, Sri Lanka established through a Parliament Act, they have established Information and Communication Technology Agency. But of course, the rest is history. But Dubai, next phase of their development, they expand the Internet City. And that became one of the biggest IT hub in Middle East and North African region. And they invited tech firms and the hyperscalers like Amazon, Microsoft, Google. So those companies came and established their regional headquarters in Dubai. So that gave them the leverage, for leapfrogging results. So that has, a lot of business came into UAE, and of course the skills came into UAE, and the companies trusted their infrastructure for them to establish as regional offices. Where in 2015-17, they took an important step by establishing a Ministry of Artificial Intelligence. That is the first Ministry of Artificial Intelligence established in a country in the world. And then they set a target. 2031, they want to have 13.4% of their GDP from the artificial intelligence activities, so which is about $200 billion work. So this is how they have became one of the best countries, went through the digital transformation and used the digital transformation to develop their economy. Well, so they have created a digital ecosystem. So the pillars of this digital ecosystem is the digital infrastructure, digital economy, and the governance. So in digital transformation, if you take the MIT Solon report 2024, it says that digital transformation projects, most of the digital transformation projects are either failing or not achieving their objectives, 87% of the digital transformation projects, not because of the technology, because of the human element. So it's very important that we have the right people taking care of the digital transformation and right qualified people. In fact, we have a target of producing 200,000 IT graduates. We have 80,000 at the moment by 2030. So I hope that we can achieve that. Of course, the talent we have is really the key for us to be successful in digital transformation. Well, so let me briefly say that instead of strategies, I'll talk about the critical success factors of UAE's digital transformation, strong leadership and the vision. So that was very important. Their country leadership has given a very strong leadership, government backing, and a vision and of course professionals like you, and executed that. And regulatory and policy framework, and the workforce, digital talent development, and the adapters and cultural readiness. Well, so when I went to UAE 34 years ago, so if you see that picture on this corner, so most of the places were like with few buildings and it was desert. But today, if you go to Dubai, it's a different world. They have done this marvelous construction, growth, what they have achieved within these 25 years. One of the reasons is that adopting digital technologies, of course, there are other factors as well. And I would say that one of the key factors is the leadership and the vision. So, well, as I see that we have the capabilities and talents that Sri Lanka can be the next digital success story and leapfrogging to a prosperity and a fair digital economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Mr. Parakrama Munavira for sharing with us those lessons from the UAE's digital transformation and also shedding light on how Sri Lanka can use that to bridge our digital divide. Our next topic is all about the role of communication in the digital economy. To help us delve deeper into this topic, we're delighted to have Strategic Communications Specialist, Presidential Task Force Member, Clean Sri Lanka, Ms. Sandhya Salgado, to join us. Let's give her a huge round of applause.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I've got to get used to this a little bit. Okay. So, a long day and almost at the tail end of the presentations. I will try to make it as quick as I can. And I believe in brevity when it comes to communications. In my kind of world, it's all about less is more. So let's hope that my brief presentation will give you some indication of the role of communications. Digital economy is like a buzzword. I think since the new government came into being, we have heard this word quite a bit. And just before I get into the deep end of digital communications, I also want to just touch upon, I'm sure you know this, but still I would like to touch upon the 3 pillars that the president has really focused on in developing the country. First being rural poverty alleviation, second being, I mean not in this order, but second being the digital economy, and the third being Clean Sri Lanka initiative. So I'm not going to talk about Clean Sri Lanka here today, but it's about the communications, the importance of communications in this digital economy landscape. I like to actually quote Dr. Hans Vijayasuriya himself when he explained what he really envisages with this concept of digital economy. He says the whole of economic transformation with economy-wise digitization, and not just siloed automation. I think what he means is it's not going to be done in bits and pieces and in silos. It's a blanket transformation that he and his team is envisaging. And that is what we have to look forward to within the next at least 5 years or before. I think he has given himself and his team 3 years because he says he measures success factors in 3-year periods. So let's hope that his usual achievable targets are put into good use at this juncture as well. So when it comes to digital economy, 5 outputs actually have been talked about. First being inclusion, because inclusion is so important in a country like ours, though small. We have lots of divides, lots of bridges to, lots of things to bridge together. Therefore, inclusion comes as a very, very important factor. Then comes efficiency. We all know that we have a long way in really achieving efficiency, be it our personal life or public service or private or whatever. Our efficiency is at a very low ebb. When it comes to time, when it comes to cost, when it comes to many things, I think there's a long way for us to go in achieving efficiency. And it is strongly believed that this concept of a digital economy will really enhance efficiency. The third is productivity. as Sri Lankans, we again know how far behind we are most of our public service mostly. I'm not even talking about the private sector, but public service, productivity is at a very low ebb. And this transformation, we hope, would make a very big change in the productivity enhancement. Transparency is so key. We talk about lots of frauds, lots of areas where things happen without any kind of rhyme or reason. So transparency will help in actually making our country move forward in many aspects. And digitalization would undoubtedly help that, and that is something that we can all look forward to. And of course, governance, needless to explain. We have lots of issues with regards procurement, with regards, so many things. Meritocracy, so many things. Governance is a huge area that we find a lot of gaps in. And these are at least 5 top areas that this transformation will hopefully help solve. And finally, what exactly is the outcome? When we look at an outcome of a massive transformation like this, it has to have a social benefit. The society has to benefit as a whole. So this is again something I picked up from something that Hans mentioned, which he said every individual, note every individual and institution, to have an equitable opportunity. Not equal, but equitable. There's a big difference between equal and equitable. Have an equitable opportunity to derive economic prosperity, thereby enhancing the growth of the nation. So each one of us benefit, and the country benefits as a whole. So that's the outcome that is expected with this transformation. I'm sure you guys would have been to India in the recent past. I was fortunate to have been there about 2 months ago, and I was blown out of my mind when I saw literally even a beggar, I mean, I'm exaggerating, but almost like a beggar having a QR code to get money. It was just unbelievable. And I was thinking, oh my God, this is what we need to have here, because it's the convenience factor is just, I have no words to explain. So that is where India has gone with a 2 billion or 1.4 billion population. And we, with 22 million people, we can do wonders if we really put our mind to it. So this means every individual, irrespective of their social class or creed, where they live, what their education levels are, should have that equitable benefit through through this digital economy. However, we have to be realistic about the issues that we obviously will face. And it is good to know the problems, because we have to know the problems to really find solutions to them. And a few insights that I picked up is fear of the unknown. We all know, even for us to change our banking system from a basic paper-based banking system to a digital system, it is a daunting task. Because people are really scared. People have all kinds of ideas about where this data will go, whether the money will get lost. So basically, fear of the unknown is a huge problem. As we know, our population is going to be over 60 by 2030, 21% of the population. That means if the older people have an inertia about using technology, we will not really be successful. So there is a problem there. So we have to be mindful about this fear of the unknown and the aging population that we will be working with. Trust is another big issue. I think you may have seen in the past, in the recent past, how people were talking about how India will steal our data and all kinds of things, right? So political games will be played. So these trust factors will have to be really managed with a lot of communications. So I'm actually focusing all what I say towards the importance of strategic communications. Inertia is another thing. I'm not willing to do this. I'm scared. I don't want to even try. So we have to make that push. That has to happen because otherwise there will be loads of people who wouldn't want to take that first step. You have to almost throw them into the deep end. Somebody mentioned skills. We have a problem with skills and we have to really up the skill sets of different kinds of people who will be part and parcel of this journey. And also, lack of collaboration. We all know when it comes to companies, or rather organizations, especially public sector, everybody works in silos. If there is no collaboration, this is not going to be a success. So I think a lot of these things, to identify a lot of these things is important because we have to find solutions. I just put these 4 things as the journey. So political will becomes really important because as we know, during the last couple of governments, I think this was tried about twice. And for some reason, because there wasn't enough political will, it didn't succeed. Then it comes to technological transformation, and I think we are in safe hands with that. So I'm just ticking these 2. But institutional collaboration is something I want to put a question mark about because we know the psyche of our people. Everybody wants to keep their thing to themselves and not share. So that is something that we will have to work towards. But the most important thing is a social transformation through a behavioral change. That is the key. If we don't make this behavioral change, we are not going to. All these 3 things will work, but if the individual doesn't move, then we are not going to succeed. So in a behavioral change, when one works on a behavioral change scenario for communications, we work with this social ecological model where we have to identify every possible person and his or her environment. So you start with the individual, then you get to the interpersonal where your family and all the neighbors are there, institutional, community, and policy. So what we normally don't do is really identify each of these segments and try to influence each of these segments so that they understand what is in it for them. So what I'm trying to stress here is the scientific way the communications has to be dealt with if we are to succeed with this transformation. When it comes to communications, there are so many things that you have to work on. Consultation is key because we have to find out from everybody what their inertias, their fears, what their challenges are. So consultation is really important, which we hardly do as a government. Engagement is really important, like 2-way engagement. Awareness creation, advocacy, capacity building, because there's a lot of training and capacity building that is necessary. We can't just expect people to take this and run, and of course training. So these are areas that the government really has to focus on if we are to make a success of this. Some people basically think that it's a one step at a time thing, but I don't think with the current kind of situation and where the world is moving, we can't be catching up. We have to leapfrog. And that is possible if we do it in a scientific way. But if we do it in a haphazard way, I'm not talking about the technology, I'm not talking about Hans and his team. I'm sure they will get the technology right, but there is a big piece out there where we have to make a lot of other adjustments. So for a person to really come on board, it has to be what's in it for me, right? We have to explain to an individual as to what the benefit is for him or her. And we call it the YFM factor. So the convenience factors, economic benefit, transparency, equitability, cashless economy, faceless economy, all these things are benefits that you can highlight and target to each of the audiences that you talk to. So this session is about management X factors, and there are 4 points identified: strategic foresight, innovation, resilience, and leadership. So let's pause for a moment and ask ourselves, do our leaders have strategic foresight? If we need to have the strategic foresight, because otherwise, if the leaders don't lead, if the leaders don't influence, the others in the organizations will not follow. Sometimes the leaders have a bit of an old-fashioned mentality, and the young people get really frustrated. So there's a big gap. So we really need to make sure that the leadership has a vision to change his or her organization. Innovation is key. I mean, this is all about innovation, and that is really important. Resilience is another thing. I mean, you might fail a few times, but as a nation, we are a very resilient people. So we really need to use that in this journey. And as I mentioned, leadership is key, because sometimes I find that some of the bosses in the companies that I have sort of met sometime, they still use a secretary as their laptop. I mean, they can't really use a laptop still, but they are CEOs and managing directors and people like that. So that leadership mindset of transformation, they have to make that change themselves. Otherwise, it will be not possible for them to influence their teams. So I just want to finish in 2 minutes. I had the great fortune of being a board member of Suasaria for about 6 years, and I would like to very proudly say that Suasaria is a poster child for digital innovation in Sri Lanka. All the things we talked about were practiced, and the efficiencies, the productivity, the transparency, everything was found at Suasaria. And if a government organization could have done it, I think we don't have to worry about the other organizations. But it is a leadership and the commitment and the belief in going forward with the digitalization that will make a difference. So basically, I personally believe that we can win this challenge if we have conviction, and if we have the right mindset to embrace change, and mostly the pride of being a change maker. Each of us have to feel proud that we individually would make that change for the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Ms. Sandhya Salgadu for sharing with us your valuable insights and perspectives. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we're now about to transition into the panel discussion segment, where our panelists and speakers will dive deeper into the topic of harnessing the digital economy, a catalyst for Sri Lanka's growth. On that note, I'd like to now hand over control to the session chair and moderator, Mr. Sandun Hapugoda. It's over to you.
Thank you, Trishma. Thank you very much. Thank you for the speakers. Thank you, CPM, for having me here. I think it's an interesting conversation, a very relevant conversation. I'm glad to be the moderator of this, and we've so glad to see a diverse panel as well. So how we're going to do this is that we'll have 3 rounds of conversation. First, we will talk about the infrastructure supporting the digital economy, because the whole topic is about harnessing digital economy. The second round would be on the digital literacy, the education, training, and people awareness. We spoke a lot about that. The third round would be on the leadership, policy, and the execution, and how we are kind of taking whatever the decisions we make forward. So I'll go to Parakrama first for the first round. Everybody will take about 2 minutes or 3 minutes to answer their question. We are not talking about your age for sure. Before I come to you, I think since the whole topic is about the digital economy, just to set the context about the current digital economy is in Sri Lanka, we have about 2 million credit cards, about 20 million debit cards for a population of 20 million. If you look at the usage of that, definitely debit has overtaken credit. We have about 700 billion rupees worth of debit card transactions now versus 500 billion rupees worth of credit card transactions per year. So there is a decent growth in that aspect. My question to you is, Parakrama, we have a decent digital infrastructure that's been established in Sri Lanka, even if you compare to a developing country, because we claim that we have almost 150% mobile penetration, we have over 60% internet penetration, we have 99% of the social media users using accessing social media through their mobile applications, etc. So my question to you is, having all this infrastructure, our digital economy is still revolving around 6.5%. We have different numbers. You said 3.7, I say 4.5, but we can have that argument later. But, my question to you is, how can we use this already established infrastructure in Sri Lanka to accelerate digital infrastructure, digital economy, or is there anything that we can do on the infrastructure side of the business?
Thank you, Sandhyan. Well, first thing is that when you said that mobile penetration 150%, but of course, is it the broadband penetration? So
it's the number of active SIMs in Sri Lanka versus
so that's active number of users.
Number of users.
So one of the things that required for a digital economy to have bridge the gap of digital divide, to have a broadband access across the country, so which is in UAE one of the highest in the world, which is 99.3%. But Sri Lanka is at about 50 to 60%. So I think we need to bridge that gap for people to access the services. And UAE, if you take, there are about 600 government services are offered online, whereas Sri Lanka has very few. Of course, we have got that now GovPay payment system that people can do the payments, government payments through certain apps. But of course, to do a complete, like what birth certificates, birth registrar has done, then you can do everything online. So for that stage, we have to, organization-wise, they have to develop their systems. And also, a very important point that you have mentioned, Sandhya, that changing mindset, that's very, very important. I'll give you an example. In Dubai, a few weeks back, I took my daughter for the driving lessons. So there you have to do a theory test, and then, of course, the parking and side parking, reverse parking, and then you go for the final test. So she went there, registered, and got the lessons online. So she has to go through lessons online and appear for a computer-based test. So when I went to the computer-based test with her, I found that all, people from Sri Lanka, India, Pakistan, from Afghanistan, Pathans, they are sitting and doing computer-based test. So they don't have any literacy of using computers, but they were forced to use it. System has no options. It is mandatory for them to use computer-based test. So I think we have to do one thing, that when we offer digital services, we should not give alternatives. So people will go for alternatives. So digital system has to be the one that only system available. I mean, for a time being, you can give for a period of time that yes. So we will be transiting from manual services to digital services. That is one of the things that we need to do. And also you said that we have about 99% social media use. That's very good for marketing companies. But any of you know that Harvard University offers more than 2,500 online free programs? How many of you know that? There are a few. So Harvard offers more than 2,500 courses. Being even an old man, I register for these courses. So I'm thinking about doing 10 courses in this year. So I think we need to use them. So one of the key points for a digital transformation and having a digital economy, that people should get educated. They should know how to use the services. And as I told, we should not give options for them to go back to the traditional services. Thank you.
Thank you, Parakrama. I think that you made a good point in terms of pushing people to use getting into the digital economy. I think many countries, as an example, India with the demonetization and multiple reasons, that different countries created use cases to push users to adapt to the digital and digital economy. One of the examples in Sri Lanka is we had this economic crisis, if you all remember. Some can argue we still have. And then we had a fuel crisis, still if you remember. And during the fuel crisis, we came up with this fuel QR, where in a week we had about 6 million active users, versus today, for last 5 years, we've been having Lanka QR implemented. We have about 400,000 Lanka QR codes with less than 250,000 transactions a quarter. So I think you had to create a reason to push people to use it. And I'll go to Sudat to talk about the government side of the business. Parakrama spoke about Ministry of Artificial Intelligence in Sri Lanka. I don't know whether Sri Lanka in UAE, I don't know, Sri Lanka has to drop artificial and implement a ministry. But I'll come to you with again an infrastructure question. I want to talk about when we talk about the digital economy transformation, so that it's very important that we talk about the DPI, digital public infrastructure as well. So in your opinion, you're one of the lucky entities where you push people to anyway use digital. But if you look at the holistic picture in Sri Lanka, when it comes to government entities, where do you see gaps and where do you think that we need to improve further?
Let me start thanking CPMA for inviting me to be a panelist in this prestigious summit. Thanks to Dr. Samantha Ratnayaka, who is a summit chair, for asking me to join this summit. For me to start answering that question, let me first show you my identity card. This is my identity card. My name is still handwritten and just a laminated identity card with polythene lamination. Please raise your hand. How many of you still have this identity card? See, the majority still having that identity card. My next question from the audience is, please raise your hand if you want a digital identity card. How many of you want a digital identity card? See, almost everyone likes to have a digital identity card. But honestly, I like this ID and I want it. I want to maintain it. The reason is, then it's very easy to manipulate. Ladies and gentlemen, in digital public infrastructure, there are three main focus areas. Starting with, as Mr. Parakrama mentioned, digital ID. And it all comes from the concept of e-governance. We call it e-government as well. So e-governance is all about digitalization of the government services. Starting the digitalization of government services, the first thing every government has to do is to develop public infrastructure focusing on digital identification. The government started this project way back about 10 years ago, to my knowledge, but it never materialized. The third focus area in public infrastructure, digital public infrastructure, is the payment, digital payments. And I'm very proud to say, in my mobile phone, I'm carrying all the mobile applications offered by all the banks where I maintain my accounts, and I do all my transactions using my mobile phone. So in that context, Sri Lanka, I think, has achieved the potential to offer digital payments to the citizens. But the third focus area is data exchange. Now, data exchange is a concept which runs into across not only the public sector, but also private sector. Because whenever the public services are automated, digitalized, it has to be integrated with private systems. So it is a partnership between private and public. We call it public-private partnership. And the data exchange is the vast area where the citizens will be given the opportunity to share their data either with the public organizations as well as with the private organizations. For example, if you want to apply for your identity, your digital identity, you will lodge your application to the registrar of persons digitally the moment it is provided. And your information, your name, your date of birth, your gender, all this information will be with the registrar of persons. And whenever you want to go and open an account in a bank, probably a private bank, the bank should be able to pull your information rather than asking you to fill your application or submit your request for the opening of the account manually or by submitting it digitally. The bank should be able to pull that information from the persons of registrar. So that is what you call data exchange or data sharing. And in that context, we make the citizen's life easier, where you don't lodge your information repeatedly and the databases wherever your information is available are shared. So those are the three focus areas. In my opinion, this is my opinion, with my experience as a government official for 37 years, we have come to the optimum level of payment, digital payments, but we are still lagging behind in the issuance of digital ID and creating the environment for data sharing among the public and private sector. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very good insight, Sudatta. I think that's a very valid point to consider where we are today. I really agree with the point that we have a mature digital payments infrastructure, probably which is underutilized. And to your point of having mobile apps, we are talking about banking consolidation today, but I think we have 29 mobile banking apps today in Sri Lanka. We might have to talk about digital app consolidation also at one point of time. But to your point, I think we have done a fantastic infrastructure enablement. Lanka Pay has done a fantastic job in terms of enabling anybody to transfer money, and we're one of the first countries to get into this online real-time fund transfer ecosystems. Before I come to Tasir, I want to talk to Sandhya about the point that Sudatta made. So we have the governments in Sri Lanka and even the current government. We've been implementing certain initiatives. We are going to market to such initiatives. Recent announcement being GovPay, and also we had an announcement on the initiative about the digital ID, etc. Right? However, we still see a huge gap in terms of the public opinion about some of the approaches and how we are planning to implement these. Do you think we have a robust plan with the government to communicate these initiatives properly to the consumer to make them aware of such initiatives?
So I have to be very honest and say
Please.
that not just this government, but even the previous governments, actually developing a strategic communications roadmap has not happened for big projects that I am aware of. And I'm hoping that this government, be it digital or poverty alleviation or whatever, they need to understand that communications is a huge part of the success of any program, because people make their own opinions. But unfortunately, the people that the government uses as those who come up with communication strategies, I find don't really seem to know what the difference between a strategy and just an ad. For example, they might write a creative line and think that, well, that's a creative idea, so everybody gets excited. But they don't realize that strategic communications is a lot more than that. And to answer to your question, I'm not seeing anything yet, and I'm hopeful that somebody will take communication seriously, and as much as the process of digitalization happens, communications also gets that pride of place.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I think that's a very good and honest feedback about what we should be doing. So from the Sri Lankan context, I would like to go into some of the global context and the use cases. So Tasir, I have a two-part question to you. Can you also speak about how emerging economies have successfully climbed on the complexity ladder with the age of digital transformation? And my second question to you is, can you also speak about how mature countries manage to roll out digital DPIs, which Sudat also spoke about, to support the digital economy acceleration of their respective countries?
Thank you for that question, and it's very well put. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for this invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. I think when you have a room full of doctors and professors, the structure of this question becomes very difficult to answer, because there's a lot of mind and thought process already in the room.
I'm not, so.
And I'm looking at you as well, starting from MasterCard, which has a very nice control arm of all of this. But fundamentally speaking, if you look at digital economy, it is just the sophistication and the complexity of a country's structural export, especially when they combine, or rather the emerging economies combine innovation, or perhaps technology-driven innovation and digital trade. And I saw for the time that I was here to see the organizations that presented their use cases today, the technology and technology-driven innovation was very well presented, and I think it is a recognized effort in all countries. And especially coming from a consulting background, I get a chance to move around many countries, many economies, and the discussions with stakeholders is how to translate, and that's where communication plays the key role, how to translate trade into digital trade. How do you make people understand the fact that the boundaries of your office or of your shop or of your establishment do no longer play a role in creating an economy and driving business for that organization and eventually for that country? And many countries have done that very well. And keeping the examples short, we can name a few, starting with your nearby countries like Vietnam. They've done very well in terms of moving or conceptualizing themselves as an organization. I say an organization because every country is an organization to me, because I'm a business person. That's how I look at it. Not like Donald Trump, though. But they converted themselves from just this low-cost manufacturing-based thinker to today high-tech, technology-based provider. And that's how they attracted companies like Samsung to come and shift bases there from their previous predecessing countries. Similarly, India. If you look at India today, it's again the same with the virtue of what Ms. Sandhya earlier mentioned, their strength in UPIs, etc. Have already moved companies like Apple to them, and they have been able to attract this not just by the fact that they have a cesspool of talent, but they created the environment and the infrastructure to do so. And I think geopolitical factors play a key role in driving companies as Apple from China to India. But the only reason it was possible was because there was now an option to do so. And I think there's a lot of learning from these examples, and especially when you are the consultant for such initiatives, we always believe in learning. So there's no need to recreate what already exists. And there's a lot of learning from countries that I just mentioned. And we can either do it better or just adapt what they have done. And that itself is a great starting point. And as Ms. Sandhya mentioned, the leapfrog point of view comes into play when there's already a platform built that you can leap ahead from. So you probably can never go wrong. When it comes to the second part of infrastructure, and the gentleman here very rightly said, the key factor is digital identity. And when Para mentioned about the UAE, there is Estonia, Finland, Singapore, Malaysia. All of these countries have done this very well. Taking an example of Singapore, they created this concept of SingPass, which became your digital identity for accessing all government services. And no other option. And UAE did not recreate. They learned, improved, and implemented. What UAE did differently than others is that, for example, in India, they have this Aadhaar card, which is the identity platform. Today, the approval or the verification of Aadhaar is still on OTP basis. And I think that's where the UAE is different. They already implemented the blockchain technology, wherein they have this app called the UAE Pass, where you get a blockchain-driven message. You either accept or reject. No need for OTP, and so on and so forth. And lastly, with regards to the digital infrastructure, what I wanted to mention was the app consolidation that you just brought up. It's a very important point, because if you look at my phone today, I have a certain number of apps, not because I live only in the UAE, but because I have residences in the places. What I like, what UAE did very well, was they forced all of the entities, at least the government entities that provided the services to the residents, to the nationals, and so on and so forth, enforced them to use UAE Pass as the approver. So they did not block the economy saying, well, if, for example, MasterCard wants to have their own app, they should not, because there's already a, let's say, a local payment gateway provided. So this hampers business. But the access to the app should be driven by the identity of the initial pass, which is the UAE Pass or the Sync Pass in Singapore. So I think if the vision, the enforcement, and the directive is clear, I don't see any challenges, especially because there's so much learning and so much potential already available in this country. And I think it's an easy leap forward.
Brilliant. By the way, we've been a part of UAE Pass as well as Sync Pass application developments. I want to quickly run to the questions on digital literacy education. So I want to split into two areas. We have the digital literacy issue. We have the digital financial literacy issue. Because digital literacy also is something that we need to address. Dr. Samantha and I used to work for a bank, and there is this gentleman who joined the bank, and I used to head IT for that particular bank, and his definition of shutting down the computer was switching off the monitor. And I was never able to, until I resigned, convince him in terms of how you shut down the computer, right? That's one aspect. But when it comes to digital financial literacy in Sri Lanka, as I said, we have 20 billion debit cards for a population of 20 million, and average use of a debit card today is about 9 times a year. When it comes to POS machines, you all go to supermarkets and see there are so many transactions happening, but average use of a POS terminal in Sri Lanka is about 6 transactions a day. And I already spoke about QR transaction as well. So cash is beating us. We claim digital is doing well, but cash is really beating us. If you look at last 5 years, digital has grown by 800 billion a year rupees, but cash withdrawals have grown by 3.6 trillion rupees, almost more than 4 times. So cash is still beating us. So my question to you is, with your experience and what you presented here, how do we improve this digital literacy and possibly extend it to digital financial literacy among different tiers of the community, starting from the children to the schools to universities to working communities to the elderly population?
Yeah, thank you, Sadhun. I would like to answer in 2 parts. The first is that if I go and talk about the digital education. So in fact, I'm also involved with the educational programs that we created, educational program for young children, AI and IoT, use case-based education. So where they do practicals and then learn theories. So I think it is very important that we impart this knowledge so when the children are young. So one of my friends who was advising me for AI programs to prepare curriculums and so on. So what he said to me is artificial intelligence is something that we should teach like a language to children when they are young. So one of the things is that 80s, we missed the bus when the information technology revolution came. So we actually did not buy into it, whereas India did very well in that. And of course, today it says that even beggars in India use QR codes. So the literacy has already there, because one of my friends told me, so beggars are having QR codes, so you can scan it and pay for them. So as I told that, it is important that we impart this knowledge for young children, where they are trained to use digital technologies. Of course, learn about the technology and use digital technology. The second part is that creating a trust. That's very important. That now countries like Sri Lanka, this trust was a bit of a question. Okay, so then people are afraid to use digital services because you don't see anything. Okay, so many of you, I know that you go for an online payment and last moment you stop. You think whether something happened for this. So that trust has to be created. I think it is very important that communication part, as you suggested, and creating that trust by practice. Of course, when the good practices are there, best practices are there, people will start trusting the systems and then they will use it. And one more last point, Sandhun, in terms of education, I think education and research. Now, what UAE and some of the European countries they have done is that they're using a model called triple helix model. So where the government, the industry, and the academia get together. So the academia does the education part. Of course, the government create that framework and the support system, and where the industry comes and try to commercialize this, what academia does, or research what they have done. So it is a combination of these 3 segments will bring this digital, boost the digital economy. So it is again, last point is that the education is a very important part of this journey. I think we all have to, especially the government has to think about creating more and more opportunities for students to have the STEM education. Thank you.
Thank you, Parakrama, about that. Sudhata, I would like to go to you with a connected question. So Parakrama spoke about the digital literacy and digital literacy education with the common man, right? But when it comes to government entities, it's also very important that we get the skill sets developed within the government sector employees with the digital literacy and to be capable to cater to the next generation of things that's to be expected. How do you think our current skill gaps are? Where do you think our current skill gaps, and what do you think that we should do as a country to improve that?
Interesting question. Let me ask another question from the audience. How many government officials are there in this audience today? 1, 2, 3. Very few. I thought I'm isolated. Thank you. Now, let me share a little story how the digital awareness took place in my office. In my office, I have a personal assistant who is a middle-aged person. And whenever he wanted to take leave, he couldn't do it because he had to handle my work, especially my email, my documents. So the smartest thing he did, I also have an office laborer, young man who is very familiar with the smartphone. So my personal assistant trained him to do all the work in his absence. Now the gap is the officer and the minor staff person. This minor staff person learned the work within a very short period of time. So in the government sector, it is not impossible. Because of the smartphone penetration, every segment, irrespective of whether they are highly educated, moderately educated, or very low education, giving the awareness, the digital awareness to government officials is not a challenge now. I can give you another example. When I joined customs in 1988, 37 years ago, straight from school as a very young officer, what I could see, very traditional customs, where the customs declaration, when you're importing or exporting goods, you have to submit a declaration to customs, which was about 2 feet long and about 1.5 feet in height, 6 copies in rainbow colors. The only device we had at that time was a manual typewriter. The only electronic device we had at that time was a digital calculator, simple calculator. And we worked at that time and collected the revenue. But over a period of time, Customs started its digitalization way back in 1993. Now we have grown to a stage where we are about to go for paperless processing. Everything will be digital because the infrastructure is ready and all the services are now done electronically, including the receiving of the cargo information, submitting the customs declaration, digital payment, the selectivity, risk-based selectivity, automated selectivity. We are going to introduce AI. The project is on. And then the digital communication to the other stakeholders like port operators, shipping operators. Then it comes to other government agencies, those who are responsible for giving their approvals like National Medicines Regulatory Authority, Standard Institute. So many stakeholders are now digitally connected and we are in a position to go for paperless clearance. It will happen very soon. And I joined 37 years ago and I am using this infrastructure, digital infrastructure. So when it comes to the giving awareness to the government officials of using the digital products and services, I don't see any challenge. But the challenge is, who is going to do it? Where should be the enthusiasm is? As Ms. Sandhya correctly pointed out, it should start from top, the political will. How the political will is created, to what level the leaders value digitalization of the society, and the understanding and how far they value it. They're the problems.
Oh, fantastic, Sudha. I really wish we had more time. I think you have experiences to share for a couple of hours, to be honest. I think CPM should arrange a separate session with him for the sharing of knowledge and experience. So we spoke about the common man's digital literacy, the government digital literacy. Tashin, I want to come to you about developing skill sets for a future-ready workforce. Now, especially for a country like Sri Lanka, uh, how do you think that we should have a roadmap to have a future-ready, digital-savvy workforce in both private sector and public sector?
I think I'll carry forward the conversation that Para was having with you guys earlier. The most important factor about readiness comes from us, the people. And at the end of the day, we might have the most amazing government initiatives in place, but if the people are not ready in heart and mind, those initiatives are useless to me. I mean, take an example of the UAE per se. At the forefront, as Para mentioned, we have about 98, 99% technological connectivity. In layman's terms, I say we have fiber to the camel in the desert. If he wanted to access something, I'm sure he would be able to do so. But everything came at a time. And it's very important to understand why the UAE today is much better than Korea when it comes to penetration of fiber or availability of infrastructure. They took their own time to educate their own staff, their own people. Not people like us. I'm also an immigrant there. But their own people. Our managers who were nationals studied in the US, not at their expense, but the expense of the government. And the government was ready to do so because they had this vision. They had this future in mind where they understood that perhaps the local education system is not capable enough for us to generate the type of people that are required to accept the technological advancements that are needed or that are the call of the day today. So they send them to countries elsewhere because they did not have the connectivity. Eventually they realized they're going to run out of money and they won't have enough funds to do so. Hence, once the first batch of people, the second batch of people, the third batch of people came into the country with all this knowledge and experience, they gave them the fiber to the home. Now they had a pipe available which they could push any product in. They gave them internet and said, continue study. And brought the companies from elsewhere in the world to the UAE and asked those companies to create the educational system that is now the need of the hour. Because it is not just the theoretical education. Like, for example, me, I went to school a very long time ago. I'm very old. Don't look at my face. But sometimes I sit today and think that whatever I studied maybe 15, 20 years ago is not valid anymore. Maybe the Kotler's and so on and so forth theories that I studied are relevant, but the rest of it comes from the industry. So if the industry and the schooling system does not get together, we're not going to have an efficient young generation that is going to be able to take or drive these technological advancements forward. So the creation of the syllabus today has to be in par with companies like MasterCard, like Microsoft, like Apple, and so on and so forth, who do their work really well. And one of the initiatives here in Sri Lanka that I have noticed, and it's come to my attention because we have a lot of Sri Lankans working for an IT company that we invested in, is an initiative called Whitetail. So young techies in Young Techie AI Labs. So this organization creates labs around the country, or they have just started creating labs around the country wherein they invite engineers that have just graduated to come and do practical learning and share knowledge to them through probably professors from other countries or probably professors that are locally available in your universities. But an international a concept which is internationally very acceptable and I think will gain popularity locally very soon. And I think that's one of the initiatives that probably will bring a lot of flavor into the youngsters. The same concept applies in the UAE. They have 1 million coders wherein they bring coding resource or they increase the coding resources of their nationals. Same concept applies in Malaysia and Singapore and so many other countries wherein the government really takes care by providing incentives And even the corporations takes care by providing incentives to people that want to invest into learning and give back to the society. I think that's very important.
That's a fantastic perspective. Thank you, Tasir, on that one. I'm a little cognizant of the time. We have only 10 minutes left. 10 minutes left. You can send questions. I've just checked in the questions, and all the questions are relating to payments, which I think I'm supposed to answer. It's great if you can send some questions to the panel as well. Sanday, I'll come to you quickly. We spoke about the skill development. I think you partly spoke about this question earlier. So we speak about external communication, but also it's important that we discuss about internal communications with the government to keep the relevant stakeholders informed when it comes to digital economy improvement. I'm not going to ask you whether we have a robust communication plan. My question to you is, if you can briefly explain where should we start as a country to establish a proper internal communication plan within the government sector stakeholders?
That's a bit of a tough one because each ministry has their own media units. The president has his own media unit, and I'm not sure whether they talk to each other. So in a situation where they are siloed, I'm really not sure how the silos, how the walls can be broken. But I think for an important thing like this digital economy, I personally feel, in fact, I spoke to Hans as well, he should have a communications unit within his purview, and that should be driving the communications needed for us to make this leapfrogging possible.
Sure, thank you very much. I'll also quickly go into the round of policy and leadership and execution. We'll take 1 minute to answer. I've been part of many governments on the digital financial services policy and the implementation. I was part of the committees of many governments. And to point Sudatta made, I think we knew for last at least 15 years what to do. We knew digital ID is required. We knew we need to enable public transportation digitization. We knew all that. All we did was we changed the format of the policy document. We changed the color of the front page from green to blue to red to I don't know what color now. My question to you is, what's the importance of the leadership, especially because you spoke about UAE, for this policy execution? Because I think we have an execution problem than a know-how problem.
Yeah, that's very important. The leadership is a role that in a digital transformation situation, the leadership has a very big role to play because, digital transformation is something come from top to down. So it's a top to bottom approach where the leaders have to lead the transformation. So what I have seen in UAE that leaders set the vision, direction, and then they form institutions. So that's one of the important things so they set the vision, direction, and form the institutions where the rest of the professionals like you has to take forward that. So in terms of digital transformation or digital economy, there is a huge role to be played by the leadership. So I hope that, I know that Sri Lanka's new leader want to have this digital economy as a digital transformation as a catalyst for economic growth. And he has put together a team, probably the best team that we have for digital transformation. Someone like Dr. Hans, who's coming with enormous amount of experience on the infrastructure side and the digital transformation side. So the leadership is a paramount important, and of course then forming the institutions and giving the right direction is the way that we can succeed in digital transformation.
Fantastic. So that I'll come to you to answer similar question. I think, as I said in the beginning, your institution is one of the lucky institutions with Asikuda to custom payments, where you mandate people making no choices for them to adopt. But there has to be a leadership to get these things rolled out, right? So for other government institutions, what is your suggestion or advice to digital, embrace digital to push the digital economy forward?
I agree with you. Of course, customs is one of the luckiest organization where we realize digitalization is quite important. And we are a key organization to collect the revenue to the government because we collect nearly 47% of the total income of the government. So, but when it comes to the integration of custom system with the other government agencies, because we had to work with more than 30 other government agencies from where we had to obtain their approvals to clear imports and exports. And also when it comes to connectivity with not only other government agencies, but also certain private entities like shipping operators and freight forwarding companies, even the private sector, there are a lot of challenges. But when it comes to government sector, I can see some government agencies are still very primitive. They use computers only to type a letter and send an email. Beyond that, they don't know what they can do with computers. So it is the responsibility of the government to give awareness and also to provide the financing to introduce the IT infrastructure. But then at the same time, let me share one very interesting experience. We are the first government entity to offer digital payments way back in 2017, when we offered the facility to the traders to pay their customs duties and other taxes online. There was huge demand from chambers. They were demanding from customs, please provide it. So we provided it. In first year, out of more than 100,000 transactions, only 50 transactions were made through digital payment system. Next year, just 70 transactions. Next year, just about 100 transactions. So the percentage was very decimal percentage. And we were surprised to see, after having invested so much of money developing the system and offering it, and there was such a demand earlier, but nobody was using it. And we didn't want to make it mandatory, because when we did it, the partner company was Lanka Pay. They said all the banks are not connected to this digital platform. If you make it mandatory, it is unfair by the trader who is having his account in the bank which is not connected to the platform. But ladies and gentlemen, we were so frustrated. Even after 5 years, the usage of this digital payment platform was very, very low. And in the COVID, the blessing in disguise, we had to maintain the physical distance. We gave the grace period for 3 months and announced that on such and such a date, we are going to close all our cashiers, counters, and ask the banks, those who are collecting manual payments, to close their counters. And we did it. Within a week, the percentage came to 100%.
That's brilliant. As I said, I wish we have more time with you.
You have to use some kind of force as well.
Yes.
When it comes to the embracing the
Adoption.
technology, you have to do it sometimes a bit forcefully.
Forced adoption, yes. I mean, some countries created problems for people to adapt, like demonetization and not having access to banks, etc. But I think as a country, we have enough problems also amongst general people. So we have to be innovative around pushing consumers as well. Quickly, I'll come to you, Tasir, about we speak about AI, adapting AI and blockchain, etc., for government services and public services and innovation in the countries for acceleration of digital economy. These are fancy words. How do you think that we can use it?
Very big words. I think if you look at the fundamental of the use case of these words, eventually ended up into solutions. Like in the UAE, the ruling family, the Maktoum family, Sheikh Mohammed came up and said, I want to use all of these technologies because I want a better future for my people starting tomorrow, not 5 years later. I want better schooling. I want better healthcare. I want better education. I want better everything for my people starting tomorrow. I don't need them to go to New York. I don't need them to go to wherever else to have a better life. But let's talk about use cases. Maybe I'll take a couple of examples from our own influence businesses, which I feel are relevant to Sri Lanka. two of them. First one in hospitality sector. You have so many websites, booking.com, Airbnb, Agoda, etc. List of hotels. You go and you keep on checking the rates. But there must be a mechanism behind how these rates are made. In the initial days, we didn't have any channel managers. We are invested into a hospitality or technology-driven hospitality company that uses AI to monitor trends like air traffic, trends like load on the airplanes, trends like how much are the airplane tickets being sold for, trends like what are the events that are upcoming, which areas these events are upcoming in, what location are these people coming in from, what is the currency valuation of those domiciles, how is the trade factor, do these people have surplus money to spend or not, and then use AI to generate a rate for our properties depending on location, type, etc. It's a very interesting aspect of things, and we've seen, and unfortunately I'm not able to give you a specific number due to confidentiality, but remarkable growth with regards to the revenue that we brought in from the changing of daily rates without human intervention. The second very interesting factor for us was we worked on a security project for a mining company that mines gems all around the world. In fact, it was responsible for mining a 55-carat ruby, which is the largest ruby in the world today. So they had a challenge of not being able to control the actual miners. So it's not possible for physical or visual interception of what this person with the tool is doing in the mine. So what we did was we created a control room for them in Dubai, whereas the company is mining globally, and wherein the video feeds from body cams in the mines with CCTV or IP cameras from the sorting places, polishing areas. All of these feeds were brought into their data warehouse or data center in Dubai in layman's terms. And this AI algorithm was used in order to make certain parameters as standards and create alarms for non-standard. For example, if this person is only required to do this, if he does this, raise an alarm. If the sorter is only required to do this, if he puts the stone in his mouth, raise an alarm. If he makes an action which is not his approved action, raise an alarm. And due to this, that company saved a significant amount of financial contributions, plus the efficiency of the process on its own, because they are no longer dependent on a human, which may or may not be incentivized by various non-standard terms. I'm trying to be very political about that.
Thank you very much. Sandhya, my last question is to you. This is all great. The technologies are great. New initiatives are great. But we need more people to talk about these initiatives amongst the common man. How do we create more spokespersons to drive the digital economy and take it to the common man?
Yes, it's a challenge, I think, because at the moment, I'm also trying to see who's talking about it outside of Hans. So I think there are enough and more people, but you have to identify different people. For example, if you want school children to learn about this process, then the right kind of mindset has to be there, and the training of trainers has to happen. So it's actually a huge process. We can strategize, but the strategy is as good as the implementation. So we really need to put in a lot of effort into fine-tuning the art of communications and looking at it from diverse perspectives, target audience specific and message specific. So it is something that has to be done scientifically.
Absolutely.
And that is a challenge, and I'm really hopeful that this government will look at it from that perspective.
Yeah, we all are hopeful. Thank you very much, Sandhya. But hope is not a strategy, as they say. It's very important that we have a proper execution plan also to execute. I'm not going into questions because questions are directly to me. We have about a couple of questions and they are talking about payments. You can meet me after the session to discuss that. So with that, because the time is up, we'll wrap up the session. Thank you very much for listening to our session. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you very much, lady as well.
Thank you indeed. Well, we'd like to request all of our panelists to please remain. We do have tokens of appreciation to present. To do the honors of the presentation, I'd like to invite Professor Lakshman R. Vatavala, Dr. Samantha Ratnaika, Mr. Hennaika Bandara, Mr. Kosala Disanaika, and Mr. Dilshan Arsukula Ratna to please join us up as we recognize and appreciate our speakers as well as our moderator. So we will get started by first and foremost extending our gratitude to our session chairman and moderator for this conversation, Mr. Sandun Hapugoda, Country Manager, Sri Lanka and Maldives, MasterCard. Let's put our hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for Mr. Sandun Hapugoda. Thank you for your skillful moderation of this discussion. We'd now like to move on to recognizing our two speakers. We start with Mr. Parakrama Munavira, Director, ASCII Dubai. Thank you for sharing your insights with us. We have up next Ms. Sandhya Salgado, Strategic Communications Specialist, Presidential Task Force Member, Clean Sri Lanka. Thank you, Madam, for your wonderful insights. We'd also like to recognize our panelists. We start with Dr. Tasir A. Rangrez, Executive Director, the Rangrez Network, Dubai, UAE. Let's put our hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for our panelist. And of course, finally, we've had Mr. Sudatta Silva, Additional Director General, Sri Lanka Customs. Let's hear your applause for him, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to Mr. Sudatta Silva as well. With that, we'd now like to request our dignitaries as well as our speakers and panelists to please remain for a group photograph. This was our final session today, ladies and gentlemen, on harnessing the digital economy, a catalyst for Sri Lanka's growth. Our heartfelt appreciation to the speakers, the panelists, as well as to the moderator for enriching us with their fabulous perspectives. And with that, as the photograph is now taken, we take a couple of moments as well to capture this by video. And we invite our keynote speaker as well to join us up. So a warm welcome to you, sir, to join the dignitaries on stage. And there we have it. Can we one more time put our hands together as we appreciate everybody on stage, ladies and gentlemen. Let's hear your applause for them. And with that, we say thank you very much to all of you on stage. You can feel free to take your seats in the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we are coming to the conclusion of this insightful and thought-provoking summit. I'm sure you all agree with me. There has been a wealth of knowledge shared here at this gathering, and these ideas not only help to broaden our perspective, but they also help to pave the way for meaningful action in our organizations as well as for our nation. We'd like to take a moment to thank all of our speakers, our distinguished guests, and all of you for joining us today. A very special note of appreciation for the incredible team behind the seamless execution of this summit. This entire event has been skillfully managed by just 8 dedicated members at CPM Sri Lanka, and we truly appreciate their hard work and meticulous planning. So let's put our hands together as we thank the staff members for putting on a fabulous show. Yes, indeed. Well done to you. And on that note, we now bring our summit to a close. We thank all of you for joining us at CPM's 12th edition of the Management Insights Summit, and we look forward to seeing you at another forum. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, and have a nice day.